Hey, Rainey.
Hi, Linda.
Hey, Ben. We're getting started in just a second. Well, it's right at 7 o'clock. You want to wait another minute or so? So for those of you online, we're starting with 3 prostrations, if you would like to join in.
So I know when I first saw people doing this, I didn't know what it was about, but it is a very powerful practice because it's an antidote to a lot of things. But prostrations is a good way to start out your practice because it's an antidote to arrogance, and arrogance is a huge obstacle to learning. So it helps cultivate humility. And I know Lama Yeshe, a lot of Westerners said, well, I don't like to do prostrations. It's not part of my cultural thing. And Lama Yeshe used to say, well, sometimes it's just good to put your head on the ground. He made it that simple. But anyway, so we're really paying homage to the enlightened beings, which are symbolized by the statues, but also our potential to become a Buddha, to the Dharma, symbolized by the books, but also our potential to realize the meaning of those words in our mental continuum, and the Sangha, which is, basically all these great teachers that have realized emptiness directly, and our potential to be Arya Sanghas, or those beings who have realized emptiness directly and can help others. So paying homage, when we do this, we're paying homage to the Buddhas, Dharmas, and Sangha. Thank you. This happens to me every time. Yeah, that's okay. Here we go. I'm good. All right. So, refuge and bodhicitta.
So if you're in the Gampa, it's the Gold Prayer Book, page 32. 34.
So we talked about the significance of the prayer, and again, I think there's a lot of things to know here, but just the attitude that we have is that basically dread of having to live out our lives with a mind that's out of control, and our faith or confidence in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha to guide us, and then our compassion for ourselves and others. Those are the motivating forces for taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Now we're going to read the text, the 8 verses of thought transformation, and then the 3 principal aspects. 3 principal aspects of the path. You got that? Okay.
Sorry, if you're in the Gampa, it's the Gold Prayer Book, page 161.
My car is so happy. It's allergic to pollen. I don't know, there may be people listening to this who are not here at the center, but there's a torrential downpour right now, which is much appreciated and needed. Okay, this is 8 verses of thought transformation. We talked about this a little bit last week. This is a profound, it's called the Tibetan Lojong, or a mind training text. And every one of these verses are powerful in their own way and are methods to overcome our self-cherishing, self-centered attitude. So we'll read through these verses. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I hold them most dear at all times. Wherever I am or whoever wherever I am or whoever I'm with, I'll always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. In all actions, I examine my mental continuum, and the minute a delusion arises, such as endangers myself and others, I forcefully confront and avert it. Whenever I see sentient beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by negative actions and heavy suffering, I hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. When out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, and the like, I accept defeat and offer the victory to them. When someone whom I've benefited and whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I regard them as a virtuous friend. In short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I secretly take upon myself all their harms and suffering. Also, I do not defile all these practices with the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, by knowing all phenomena to be illusory. Without trusting in them, I am freed from bondage. So,
Sorry for those following in the Gold Prayer Book or online, our version's just slightly different,
it is okay.
but it's all
That's Lama
same
Zopa Rinpoche's latest translation is the one I'm using. Now, this is the three principal aspects of the path. Again, this is coming from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive, so I don't know, it may be slightly different than the prayer book. But I realized that last week we were talking about the 8 verses of thought transformation, and without having some appreciation for what the three principal aspects of the path, this text doesn't really come alive. So I figured we had to go back and revisit this.
This is page 141 in the Gold Prayer Book.
Maybe I'll read it out of here. I bow down to my perfect gurus. The essential meaning of the victorious one's teachings, the path praised by all the holy victors and their children, the gateway of the fortunate ones desiring liberation. This I shall try to explain as much as I can. Those who are not attached to the pleasures of circling, who strive to make freedom and endowments meaningful, trust themselves to the path pleasing the victorious ones. You fortunate ones, listen with a calm mind. Without the complete intention to definitely be free from circling, there's no way to pacify attachment, seeking the pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. And by craving for cyclic existence, embodied beings are continuously bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation. Freedom and endowments are difficult to find, and life has no time to spare. By gaining familiarity with this, attraction to the appearances of this life is reversed. Thinking over and over again that actions and their effects are unbetraying, and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence, attraction to the appearances of future lives is reversed. When having trained in that way, there's no arising, even for a second, of attraction to the perfections of cyclic existence, and all day and night the intention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of renunciation has been generated. Even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. Swept away by the current of the 4 powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, endlessly reborn in cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the 3 sufferings, thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. In short, excuse me, if like the mother whose cherished son has fallen into a pit of fire and who experiences even 1 second of his suffering is unbearable as an unbearable eternity, your reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second, and the wish seeking enlightenment for their sake arises without effort, then you have realized the supreme precious mind of enlightenment. Without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you've generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root causes of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. One who sees the cause, hang on a minute, I might have missed a page here. No, that's right. One who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both cyclic existence and the state beyond sorrow as forever unbetraying, and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared, has at that time entered the path pleasing the Buddhists. If the appearance of dependent relations, which is unbetraying, is accepted separately from emptiness, as long as they're seen as separate, then one has still not realized the Buddha's intent. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, and for merely seeing dependent relation as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. Furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence, and emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you're not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. In this way, you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path. Resort to seeking solitude, generate the power of effort, and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child. So let's do a little meditation now, and just I think most people know how to do the 9-round breathing. That's a good one to start with. If you're more comfortable, just following your breath, whatever practice you're comfortable with. But 9-round breathing, basically, Geshe always teaches it this way. Usually, the ring finger is supposed to be connected to the heart. So a lot of times you use your ring finger, you include the left nostril, and you breathe in the right nostril and out the left 3 times, and then you breathe in the left and out the right 3 times, and then in both nostrils and out both nostrils 3 times. Kind of settles the mind and gets the psychic channels kind of flushed out. It's a good way to settle down just about any time. So you do this on your own. Again, repeat this a couple of times more just to settle. going to do a little brief practice called Tonglen. And it's part of the cultivation of bodhicitta. It's a practice that can be done on its own, but it's usually best done in the context of meditating on bodhicitta because, well, it just is. But basically, when you do Tonglen, it's giving us it's a very powerful practice to develop the mind of loving kindness and the mind of compassion, because we're practicing giving happiness and its causes, and we're practicing taking away suffering and its causes from various beings. And we usually start, so tonight we'll just do it with ourselves maybe, but so imagine yourself in the space in front of you. Maybe at the level of your forehead, a body's length in front, and in the space in front of you, maybe like a hologram. And yeah, usually we have most of us have a pretty high regard for ourselves. So what we want to do is to wish ourselves happiness and its causes. So we're going to, again, this is a way to develop love for ourselves, which I know some of us don't really have that for ourselves yet. We're working on it, so that's important. And then we're going to imagine the suffering that we're maybe, at least for sure, the experience of unsatisfactoriness or dukkha, sometimes translated as suffering, but it's much bigger than that. It's unsatisfactoriness. It's all the things that we don't want, basically. We imagine that we're taking that into ourselves. So that's, in doing that, it's cultivating compassion, right? And as we bring that, so we breathe out the love in the form of white light, and we breathe in the dukkha, the negativity, in the form of black smoke. So it goes out the right nostril, the white light, and it fills your body in front of you with this white light of loving love, and then all your suffering in the form of black, dark smoke. And you inhale that through your left nostril. It doesn't have to be done in one breath, it can be multiple breaths. And then you want to get it right here at your nostril, and then with one breath, you inhale it, and it goes right down to your heart and destroys this rocky mountain of self-cherishing selfishness that is the obstacle to all of our future happiness and the cause of all of our past suffering. So it completely destroys, like an atomic bomb destroys, this rocky mountain of self-cherishing, and our body's completely full of light. And then we give again to ourselves, and we can add that mentally. You could say to yourself, mentally, you could say, "May I be happy and have the causes of happiness." And you imagine that white light goes out the right nostril and fills you full of this wonderful healing white light of love. And then your negativities sort of rise up off your body in the form of black smoke, and you breathe that in again. You get it all right here in front of the left nostril, and then you breathe it in, and it destroys your self-cherishing, and you're kind of liberated from that. So again, this is a very powerful practice to do with yourself to begin with. I've always been taught, when you do Tonglen, you always start with yourself, and then you start with people that you care about, because obviously it's much more, you cannot have compassion. If you hate somebody and they suffer, you might actually rejoice. So you have to feel connected and care about people. So we work with the easy people first, like ourselves, and then the people that we love and adore, and we wish them happiness and its causes, and then we take their suffering into our heart and destroy our self-cherishing and so on. So we do this cycle, but we'll start out with yourself for the first couple of minutes. Again, this is not just a visualization of white light, black smoke, but you've got to think of the meaning. Like you're giving happiness and its causes. That's love. That's the Buddhist definition of love. May you have happiness and its causes. But it's not those words. It's actually something, it's a feeling. It's a profound feeling that you have. That's what you're giving. And when you take on suffering, the definition of suffering in Buddhism is may beings be free from suffering and its causes. That's not compassion. That's the definition of compassion. Compassion is that feeling in your heart of hearts that wants to take away the suffering of others and yourself. That's the attitude. And very important to be thinking of the meaning of this practice as you're doing it. So again, we're cultivating love and compassion. Love and compassion as we, first of all, work with ourselves, and then maybe with one or two close people that we feel very close and love quite a bit. So we'll do that for a few minutes. and just to sit for a moment with the experience of having cultivated whatever degree you have of love and compassion. So there's two little books that I've been looking at reading, part of anyway, and this weekend. This one's really cool book. This is published by Wisdom. I like little books because I can finish them. But this is a really juicy one. But it's basically the Dalai Lama's teachings on the three principal aspects of the path by Wisdom Publications. And we'll use some of this to, I just looked at it briefly tonight, but it's a great little tome. I have read it at some point in the past. And this is, the only place I could find this was on Amazon, I think. It's called Mind Training. Well, it's The Essence of Maya in a Lojong Practice. And it's called Mind Training in 8 Verses by Geshe, basically Tarchen, Tarchen, Geshe Tarchen. He was a Mongolian Lama who was trained in Tibet, and when he escaped, he went to Free Acres, New Jersey, I believe, and started a little monastery there, and a lot of he's a wonderful teacher. And so this book is very cryptic, but it's good, really to the point of the 8 verses. So, so the title of this module, I think, is called Presenting the Path. Thank you. So this is too much. Every time I think about it, my head spins, because the sometimes it's packaged so many different ways, right? Sometimes you hear of the 3 higher trainings, which has to do with training in ethics, concentration, wisdom. Then you've heard of the Eightfold Path, right? Then we, in the Tibetan tradition, we talk about the in the Lam Rim, it's sort of broken down into the beings of three capabilities. The beings of the 3 capabilities. The beings of the first capabilities are the beings whose aspiration is just want to have a good rebirth, just want to have a good rebirth. Somebody told me in Thailand, I lived there for a while, trying to learn how to do that practice, and they said a lot of the, now this is, I don't want this to sound sexist, but they said a lot of the Thai women want to be reborn as a queen. in their next life. That was their goal for practicing Dharma. But I think it's a lot deeper than that, isn't it? So there's having a good next life is necessary to be able to practice the Dharma. So, if we're in hell, we're in a really difficult situation, we can't practice. So, again, the lower capable being is their aspiration is just a good rebirth. And then the middling capable being is their aspiration is for nirvana. Okay? What is nirvana? Besides a rock and roll band? And a word that's bandied around a lot. It just basically means freedom from suffering. And I remember in Thailand, it's actually possible to achieve nirvana in this lifetime. And in Thailand, I remember meeting some monks at this monastery, and they were in what they call the forest tradition. And this one monk was telling me how he had been in the forest and he had met this monk, and when he saw him, he was sounds weird, but I'll say it anyway. He was crying because he was so happy. He had achieved some sort of experience, I guess, which this person took as nirvana, where he was so amazed that he was so blissfully happy. He had achieved this amazing state through his really hard practice. So I do believe nirvana is possible to achieve. It takes a huge effort over time. But that's the goal of the middling capable being. And the highest capable being in the Lam Rim is someone whose goal is supreme enlightenment. And that's the Mahayana motive, right? The motive is I must help others, and to do that, I've got to get enlightened. I've got to eliminate my shortcomings, my faults, purify my mind, all my karma, and I need to develop all the qualities. We have the Bodhisattva, the 6 perfections. That's what our main practice is, or should be, if we're practicing in this tradition. So they're the lower, middling, and upper, sort of highest capable beings. That's the Lam Rim is broken down like that. And then I think the easiest way for me to wrap my mind around it is the 3 principal aspects of the path that we read earlier. And we've talked about this in other classes. And if you've done this module, so I'll write this stuff down. So the 3 principal aspects of the path, which is again another way that the teachings are packaged. But all right, so 3 principal aspects. Sometimes they call it three principal paths, but it doesn't matter. 3 principal aspects of the path. So the first one is renunciation. I may not spell this right, but that's okay. Renunciation. So, renunciate sounds like not having much fun, right? Renunciation. But what we're renouncing is not pleasure or happiness, but renouncing is suffering and its causes. So it's more than that. It's more like the determination to be free, okay? To be free, determination to be free of suffering, okay? And some people have translated that as, it's kind of like having compassion for yourself. It's like having, I remember I asked this when I was in first time I heard this term equated with compassion. I was at a teaching by in Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives. I was at a teaching at Tushita, which is a Mahayana center in Dharamsala, India. I guess she loved Song Rinchen. I still remember. I said, where's compassion for yourself in Tibetan Buddhism? Because I'm all about, hey, where's compassion for me? He said, there it is right there. Renunciation. It's realizing we're in a mess. We are stuck. We are stuck in samsara. There's the different, we talked about dukkha, but the three kinds of dukkha. There's the pain, the dukkha of just physical and mental pain, right? Then there's the dukkha of change, that everything is in a constant state of flux, and we're clinging, and things are always changing. So we're going to suffer. And so we're never, ever satisfied. Lama Zopa said it's the worst suffering in all of samsara. We're never satisfied. And then there's a pervasive dukkha. They're talking about circling. That's samsara, circling day after day, year after year, life after lifetime, circling in samsara. So we want to be free of that. So that's renunciation. And when we have a realization of that, it's like our hair's on fire. Now, how do you make sure somebody stays in jail if you want to keep them in jail? Make sure they don't know they're in jail. Then they won't want to go anywhere. But we're in jail. So the Buddha's trying to teach us, hey, we're in jail and we got to get it. We got to get it in our bones that we have an unworkable situation. And furthermore, implied in this is it is possible to be free, which is great news. Just to point out that we're suffering and then go, sorry, but Buddhism's saying, we're sick, there's a cause for the sickness, it can be cured, and there's a method, the path. So the determination to be free. That's the first of the three principal aspects of the path. And number two is what? Bodhicitta. They call it, some people put a CH, some people put an I. Chitta, it sounds like chitta, bodhicitta. So they call it, some people call it the mind of enlightenment, the altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. So the goal, bodhicitta, is like the distinctive feature of the Mahayana tradition, okay? The goal is to achieve, the goal is to help others, to liberate universal living beings from suffering and help them find their highest happiness, to achieve their full potential, okay? So bodhi means awaken and chitta means mind. So the awakening mind, or the mind of enlightenment. And so the method to do that is one's on achieving enlightenment oneself. So again, bodhicitta, Jeffrey Hopkins translated it, best I can remember. It's the altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. So it's not some sentimentality or anything like that. It's like genuinely feeling connected to universal beings, not only the people that we love and adore, but universal living beings, which also includes the vast majority of our beings that we don't know. We feel sort of indifference toward. And then there's a little subgroup over here that we just dislike. We feel aversion toward. But we're not excluding anybody. So universal living beings, we're getting enlightened for their benefit. That's a big one, because we have people in our lives that we got stuff on, we don't want to, I want to get enlightened for everybody but her or him, kind of thing. So this is a big deal. And there are ways to cultivate this. And then the last is the wisdom, the other is wisdom of emptiness. All right, and then I'll put down awakening mind. And then the wisdom of emptiness, it sounds so, I don't know, Lama Yeshe, he didn't talk, he used the Sanskrit word shunyata. It's the same thing. Or non-duality, these are some synonyms. All right, so wisdom of emptiness. So that has to do with, we say, well, that just seeing things as they are. Well, what does that mean? I mean, how is that going to help me? Well, it's going to make a huge difference, because the way I am is, right now, my sense of myself is very strong, If somebody insults me, I'll go, how dare you talk to me that way? Or if I see something I want, I'll go, gosh, I got to have that chocolate or whatever it is. That sense of self is so powerful, and it's overpowering, in fact. And we talk about that self-cherishing attitude, which is predicated on what Buddhism would posit is a mistaken sense of self. It's a fiction. It's a sense of self that does not exist. We clearly exist, but not in the way we see ourselves to exist. And until we see that the way we think we exist is a mistake, we'll always cling to this false sense of self. And we'll be stuck forever in samsara. So beginning to see through the illusion of a separate self, this sense of an independent, self-existent I. For example, I go, well, I'm standing here and I'm thinking, so where's the I? And it's unfindable, isn't it? It's unfindable. It's something that is created by the mind of ignorance, this false sense of I. There is an I, but it's what Buddhism would say, it's just a nominal I. It's just a merely existent I. We do exist, but not in the reified way that we sense we do. So you can see that sense of I is the source of attachment, I want, or fear, I am afraid of, or anger, I'm so mad, All the delusions are predicated on this mistaken perception of the way we exist, the way others exist. So it's really ultimate. It's kind of nice because this is the tap root for everything, for all of our suffering. If we want to be free, if we really want to achieve our full potential, we have to get it. We have to at least initially understand what this means, and then gradually, over years and years of practice, we can get an intuitive sense of it. But it takes a tremendous amount of merit. So you can be as smart, there are a lot of professors out there that intellectually understand this, right? But they don't have it in their heart of hearts. They don't operate in the world that way, because it's just an understanding. It's not. You have to conjoin. They say bodhicitta is so powerful because it's a powerful method to cultivate merit, and we need merit to be able to understand and actualize the teachings on wisdom. All right. So the teachings on wisdom are profound, and we'll talk more about this. But I mentioned this. It mentioned it briefly. The dependent arising. So I'll just write this down and say a word about it. So dependent arising. Dependent. I'm going to say that looks right. Arising. So this is the proof of emptiness. All right? We're saying that things are empty of inherent existence. Let me give you an example. I've used this example too many times, but I'll use it again. Like if we thought that there was a tiger, like everybody went out and you heard, and I took my cell phone out and I had the sound of a tiger roaring, and you were outside and you heard this tiger roaring and wow, there's a tiger in there. And then I hit it, and I said, okay, come on in. And you guys were sure you heard a tiger, and you're looking for a tiger. You look everywhere, and you cannot find it. You're sure it's there. But you can't find it. You can't find it under the cushions. It's not anywhere behind here. And you go, well, I guess there's no tiger here. I guess the room is empty of tiger. Like what I thought was there, which is an inherently existent self, we look for it, we can't find it. It's not in the body, it's not in the mind. Where is it? We can't find it. We cannot find it. And they say it's the non-finding of that false sense of self that is the true finding. So dependent arising has three aspects. First is that phenomena, impermanent phenomena, arise in dependence upon causes and conditions. So that's karma, okay? That's karma. The second part is, and this seems kind of silly, but it's profound. Jeffrey Hopkins says this is the part that he finds the most helpful. He's deceased now, but he was a friend. He was a friend, and somebody that I got a chance to get some teachings from, and he was a professor at UVA and all that stuff, and a translator for the Dalai Lama. And so, causes and conditions, everything exists in dependence upon its parts. All right, now get this, we're talking about things exist in dependence upon causes and conditions, parts, and third is a consciousness that labels, okay? Basically exists in dependence upon the process of labeling. So I can't call this a horse. It's not a horse, it's a magic marker. Everybody agrees it's a magic marker, right? So we all agree. So conventionally, that's what it is. I can't say it's something it's not. I mean, I can say it, but it's not. We know it's not. So things exist in dependence upon, they arise or come into existence in dependence upon causes and conditions. They're parts. So there are parts to this, right? There's a cap, there's a marker, there's ink inside, and if a physicist would say it's more space than it is solidity, isn't it? It's bazillions of atoms. We cannot find the magic marker that exists independent of my mind labeling it. So it exists independent upon parts and a consciousness that labels it. So you go, well, that's not so profound. What's the big deal? I mean, that's easy to see. Everything exists upon causes and conditions. Everything exists independent upon parts. Everything exists independent upon the consciousness that labels. But that's exactly the opposite of how we see it. That's the point. How we see it is that it exists independently, okay? Inherently. When we talk about how things exist, they seem to exist in and of themselves, out there, independent. Even, let's take the eye. It seems to be real, doesn't it? It seems to be so solid and real and exist independently and inherently. And if it did, it couldn't depend on anything. This is the point. It would be independent. We have a sense of an independent self. Everything seems to exist in and of itself, independent of my mind labeling it, right? And its parts and the causes and conditions. So here we have things are all interdependent or arise in dependence upon these. However, the way they appear to us as inherent or independent. It sounds like a semantic game, but it's not. It's a big deal. Everything seems to exist independently or inherently, and in fact, it exists dependently. It's interdependent. It exists in dependence upon these things. But these are the most profound, most difficult teachings in Buddhism to get in the beginning. I'm not a great teacher. I'm just giving you my best shot at it. But it's something that needs, a great teacher can get it across and actually has the experience of the meaning of these words. And it's very helpful to get teaching from somebody like that. But when we talk about, when we talk about wisdom, basically, this is what we're talking about. And when we go through the verses on wisdom, it'll talk about how things are dependent arising. And they say that basically, well, I won't go into it right now, but that's enough for the moment. So these are the three principal aspects of the path. This is basically the essence of Tibetan Buddhism minus the Vajrayana. This is, yeah.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask about number 2, where you had put awakening mind next to bodhicitta. Can you just share? I understand bodhicitta as being that kind of the desire for loving, the desire for cultivating your compassion for other sentient beings.
Yeah.
But how does it connect to awakening mind?
Well, you need to have bodhicitta to awaken. You need to have bodhicitta become enlightened. You cannot get enlightened without. In other words, the two wings of the bird of enlightenment are, we say method and wisdom. Well, the method is compassion, and this is universal compassion of bodhicitta. So you can't be just smart. You got to be kind.
So you're not
You got to be
saying that,
compassionate.
not saying that bodhicitta means awakening mind.
It's translated that way. It's often used that way, but it means that. Remember I said bodhi means awaken and chitta means mind. So that's the literal translation, but
I missed that word.
but when it's defined, it's the altruistic intention to achieve enlightenment based on love and compassion. So clearly we have to do some work to develop love and compassion before this mind is going to arise. It won't arise spontaneously, because that's not how we're wired. We're more simple. Is this thing working? Yeah. I don't know what time I got here. So let me stop for a minute and see if there are any questions, any more questions or comments.
If you're on Zoom, just unmute or get my attention. If you're in here, just raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic.
I promise I won't make anything, well, I can't promise that, but I'll try not to make anything up. If I don't have the answer, I'll go to Geshe-la and get it.
So I have a question about, you shared that there's people that understand emptiness but don't have it in their heart.
Yeah.
So could there be people that have it in their heart and don't understand it?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there are people that nobody would say Buddhism has the corner, but only you have to be Buddhist to get enlightened. I mean, there may be people that come into this lifetime with, very profound understanding of emptiness just intuitively from past life, again, we would say, as Buddhists, we say imprints from past lifetimes. They've achieved really high state of spiritual awakening in former lives, and they bring those karmic predispositions. So those would be people that, and they may be ordinary people, like somebody at work that that just shows up a certain way. Generally speaking, they would be somebody who would be kind and considerate and make good choices and stuff. But sometimes bodhisattvas or can manifest as like crazy people, really difficult people, and they're there for a reason, for us really, in a sense. They're there to teach us something. That's one of the verses in 8 verses of mind training. In fact, I was going to go over that second verse tonight. Let me just say this, because I think there might be somebody here that's new. I think Ben, you said you were new to this, didn't you? Yeah. So I'm going to go over can you see the board, by the way? No, really? You can't? Okay. Well, this is pretty simple stuff. I say simple stuff, but it's not easy. Renunciation is developed. I'll erase some of this. I'm throwing out a lot of information because this is the foundation for the whole, the 8 verses. So you got to understand some of these points. So when we develop renunciation or this, remember I liken this to compassion for yourself. And it's this determination to be free of suffering. But if we've never taken the time to look at ourselves and look at the human condition and realize that it's unsatisfactory, that we are suffering. And until we can come to terms with our own situation, and basically the situation of all living beings, again, we won't want to be free. We won't have this determination to be free. So it's really important in the beginning. In fact, the first teaching the Buddha gave of the Four Noble Truths, the first thing that came out of his mouth was the truth of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths. Remember, I said basically, number 1, we're sick. And then number 2 is there's a cause for the sickness. Now the sickness is like dukkha, the Sanskrit word, D-U-K-K-H-A, which has many meanings. Sometimes translated as suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and on and on. It's just all the bad stuff. And then the causes of suffering. So we're sick, and there's a cause for the sickness, and it's karma. What goes around comes around. The pedestrian version of it. Karma and delusions. Okay, the principal delusions are greed, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy. Those are 5, but there's 84,000 of them supposedly. And then the third noble truth is that we're sick, there's a cause for the sickness, and it can be cured, okay? It can be cured. We can be free. We can be free of dukkha. And that's equivalent to nirvana, okay? We can actually achieve, and no other spiritual tradition that I know of, and no other psychological system would posits that what Buddhism posits, that we could actually be completely free of suffering in this lifetime. It's possible to do that. Again, you don't have to take my word for it, because I'm basing my experience on my experience and the teachers that I've met and the people that I've met. But I can't prove it. But I definitely have some faith in it because of years of being around really extraordinary people like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and even Geshe-la and Geshe Sampa and Geshe Gelek and the Dalai Lama and Lama Yeshe and other really extraordinary people who are basically the fruit of the practice. They say the proof is in the pudding. Well, the pudding is pretty amazing when you get to know these teachers. So that's one of the great advantages of having a teacher, somebody that you respect. And then the fourth noble truth is so you're sick, there's a cause for the sickness, it can be cured, and here's the medicine. The medicine is the path, okay? Basically the path. And the path that we're practicing is the path taught by Lama Tsongkhapa. Sometimes, again, the more extensive version of the path is called the Lam Rim. Okay? Now, I went over it briefly, the 3 principal aspects of the path, and then that's enough for us within this tradition. And then Vajrayana is part of it as well. Tantra or Vajrayana is a big part of it. But that's beyond the scope of this class for sure. So again, now let's talk about I'm just going to jump around here a little bit. So what are the methods to develop renunciation? All right. The first thing we need to do in developing renunciation, this is in the verses, by the way. The first thing we need to develop is let's see. They call them the freedoms and endowments. So we recognize that we have so much opportunity. Like in the morning I have this little thing that I got on an app on my phone. I don't use it every morning, but I've been trying to. And sometimes we call it the precious human rebirth, right? PHR. We throw that word around a lot. So we have the freedoms and endowments. So what does that mean? We're free from being born in a hellish, joyless realm. We're free from being in a country where you couldn't practice religion. We're free from being having no particular inclination towards spiritual practice. Even being heretical or feeling negativity about spiritual practice. So we have those freedoms, and there are more, of course, freedoms that would be obstacles, like not being able to hear or see, to appreciate the teachings. More so, people can have disabilities now and get the teachings, but in the past, it was really difficult. It is more difficult now as well. So when I get up in the morning, first thing I'm thankful for is my PHR. Every day, I'm alive, I got a precious human rebirth with freedoms and endowments, okay? Then again, we're trying to develop renunciation. The second thing is death and impermanence. That death is definite, so everybody dies, so I better practice the Dharma. I could die any minute, right? Any second, we could die. People are going, right this second, all over the world, people are dying. This second. They didn't wake up this morning thinking they were, but they're dying. We could die any second. Just take a little blood clot. We'd be gone, right? Lightning, we just went through a storm, a tornado, all kinds of things. So death is definite. We're going to die. I must practice the Dharma. The time of death is completely random. So I must practice the Dharma now. Can't postpone it. And then the third is that the only thing of any benefit at the time of your death is not your 401k or your kids or your wife or the vacations that you went on or all the great drugs, sex, and rock and roll that you got to experience in your lifetime. Not any help at the time of death. The only currency that you can spend on your deathbed are the spiritual realizations that you planted on your mental continuum. Okay? So when we have a realization of these 2 points, that life is precious and that it could be over any minute, any second actually, then we give up attachment to the happiness of this life. Okay? And then we think about the last two are karma and basically dukkha. Okay? So when we talk about karma, Ben, I'm on you here, buddy. Got to pay attention. Karma, there are 4 aspects to karma. So karma is definite. So if basically positive actions lead to happiness. Positive leads to positive. And negative leads to negative. Okay? Now, how do you know if an action's positive? An action's positive when it's motivated. Motivation is crucial to karma. Okay? An action motivated by non-attachment, non-hatred, non-ignorance will always lead to happiness. The motivation, an action motivated, no matter what it looks like on the outside, an action motivated by greed, hatred, ignorance will always lead to suffering. So you have to know your mind well, because just because you're doing something that looks virtuous may not actually be virtuous. It may actually be creating, or maybe like not quite purely virtuous. So it takes, motivation is a key factor in karma. The second aspect of karma is that it's expandable. So it's changing, it's growing nonstop. So just like a little oak seed can grow into a huge tree, and it didn't get that way overnight, it's just constantly growing, growing, growing. So we're constantly planting seeds in our mental continuum for suffering or happiness, and they will ripen at some point, but they're constantly being nurtured and expanded. And so a Dharma practitioner looks for every opportunity to plant seeds of virtue because they have such faith in karma. I heard one teacher say, and I'm not sure I totally agree with this, but I understand where he's coming from. He said, basically, it's impossible. Well, he said several things, but he said it was possible to be truly virtuous if you don't believe in karma and rebirth. Not sure about that. But when you appreciate that every moment of every day we're planting countless seeds of karma that are going to ripen in the future as happiness or suffering, and they're expanding exponentially, we want to use every moment that we can to plant the seeds of virtue, right? Keep our mind in virtue. Lama Zopa said, keep your mind in virtue. And then this one's hard to get. A lot of people don't like this. This is when people walk out of the classroom, don't ever come back. You know, basically saying that if we experience the result, we created the cause. Sounds like accountability, doesn't it? It sounds like, hey, I'm responsible. But that doesn't mean I'm to blame or I'm guilty or I'm bad. And it doesn't even mean I did it. Me, meaning Don did it. But this mental continuum has been around since the beginning of time. And each lifetime, it picks up karmic seeds. And those karmic seeds ripen in the future. So it sounds like we're a victim, right? We're a victim of some knucklehead of the past who did this or that. And now here I am suffering now. Darn it, if I could just get my hands on him. But her or it or whatever it was. You know, we're constantly, whatever we experience is the fruit of our past actions. That's a very powerful attitude to have, because we can, as Lama Zopa said, we can literally shape our mind. We can literally create our future by the choices we make in this moment. And we can also purify negative karma, all right? Which is the last point, and that is that, let's see, expandable. Basically, sometimes we say karma is definite, all right? That means that if you create a karma, eventually it will ripen. That's not 100% of the time, but again, remember, this is different than this positive leads to positive, negative leads to suffering. This is that if we planted a karmic seed, eventually that karmic seed will ripen in some future lifetime. Nothing is ever lost. This is why it's so important to be vigilant every moment that we're conscious of what's going on in our mental continuum, because and a lot of times it's just keeping as Venerable Rabina said, keep your mouth shut and your hands to yourself, and you're halfway home. But the mind is impossible to control, isn't it? So we're not there yet. Eventually, maybe sometime in the distant future, for me anyway, I don't see that possibility. But karma can be purified. So it doesn't necessarily has to ripen. We can purify negative karma by, remember we talked about the 4 abundant powers. We can talk about that at another time. And also we can destroy positive karma with heavy negative actions. For example, they say a moment of anger can destroy an eon of negative karma. Interesting. I'm sorry, positive karma. Sorry. Then we'd all be enlightened, wouldn't we? So, again, here we are, we're talking about karma, and we're talking about the 4 aspects of karma, and then dukkha is that basically, there's this Buddhist teaching on suffering or unsatisfactoriness or whatever, and then we talk about there's the dukkha of pain, just pain, ordinary mental and physical pain. There's the dukkha of change. but things are constantly changing, and the dukkha of being caught in samsara, in this wheel of uncontrolled causation. And then you start sort of breaking it down a little bit, and as I say, unpacking it, and all of a sudden you see that, well, high position leads to low position, and meeting leads to parting, and we're never satisfied, and we die again and again and again, and are reborn again and again and again in this unsatisfactory situation, and meeting leads to parting, and on and on. I mean, there's, we're caught in a very difficult situation, samsara. And so when we look at karma, the fact that we're constantly creating karma, and most of it is motivated by self-cherishing, is going to result in suffering, and we understand the depth of suffering, then we give up attachment to the future life's happiness. And we go, hey, let's put the emphasis on living in the moment, because this is when it's happening. This is the only time we have a choice. So I can't count on the karma that I created today because I did something nice for somebody, saving me in the next life. It might not work out. So again, that's how we develop renunciation, and bodhicitta is a conversation for maybe next week. But there's a whole system. There's like a whole bunch of guided meditations on how to develop the awakening mind of bodhicitta too. Did you take that class? On bodhicitta? Yeah, how to develop. Well, when we did this last time, we went over those 11 or 12 meditations. And basically, equanimity, seeing all beings as mother, remembering the kindness of mother, wishing to repay the kindness, the equality of self and others, seeing the faults of self-cherishing, selfishness, the problems, the benefits of cherishing others, and then exchanging the attitude of self-cherishing for cherishing others. Basically we have now, our come from is that we cherish others, and then again the meditation on Tonglen, and then the supreme wish, which is I must become enlightened in order to benefit all sentient beings. And we realize that the only person that could do that is a Buddha, so we have this supreme aspiration for enlightenment in order to be and the only way to help others, truly help them in the most profound way, is for us to achieve enlightenment ourselves. So our aspiration is enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So that's, in a nutshell, how we develop bodhicitta. In 2 minutes. Anyway, so yeah, so class is over. See y'all next week. No, there's a lot to take in. So let's do a couple of verses from there's 8 verses of mind training. So last week we did the first 2. I'll read those. The first one,
It's page 161.
yeah, well, this is a different translation, obviously, but the first one, the essence of it was, hold on, Geshe Tarchin, he does his own thing here. Tharchin, Geshe Tarchin. Yeah, here we go. The first verse, basically, he's saying, cultivate the view that all sentient beings are extremely kind. All right, anybody want to summarize what we said that meant last week? Anybody just want to jump off their cushion and take that one on? Yeah. So the first one basically says, may I always cherish all sentient beings by thinking of them as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, and by aspiring to achieve the supreme goal. So again, may I always cherish all sentient beings by thinking of them as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, and by aspiring to achieve the supreme goal. That's Geshe Tarchin's translation. So you remember what that meant?
Anyone in here? Basically, we need others in order to develop realizations ourselves.
Well, it's dependence upon other beings that we develop compassion, right? We see suffering beings, we feel connected to them, and the more we feel connected and love, the more we feel compassion. If we see somebody that we hate, and there are a lot of political people out there these days that, for some reason, it's like a lightning rod for a lot of people's anger. And if you hate somebody and you see them suffering, you actually are at risk of rejoicing. Then you get the negative karma. Particularly if they die, you get the negative karma of killing them. So I remember when Saddam Hussein died and a lot of people were happy, and I said, boy, you just got the karma of killing. If you rejoiced in somebody else killing, you don't want that. So, we've got to be careful. But it's really, this practice is also an antidote to self-cherishing. By cherishing other sentient beings and thinking of them as precious, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, and by aspiring to achieve the supreme goal. So remember we talked about, when we hold our hands together like this, when we're doing our prayers, in the Tibetan tradition, you put your thumbs here, you tuck them in, and it's like you're holding a wish-fulfilling jewel. And that jewel is all sentient beings. So it's independence upon them. We're getting enlightened for their sake. Our body is here in dependence upon them. We got this body from our mother and dad and from former generations and so forth. So all sentient beings are like a wish-fulfilling jewel. This mythical jewel that whatever you want, you get it, if you have a wish-fulfilling jewel. So sentient beings are that way, so we need to relate to others as being extremely precious that way. And then the second verse that we touched on, and again, this is Geshe Tarchin's, the sort of the simple-minded way of looking at it is, in particular, view yourself as lowly and cultivate respect for others. A lot of us already feel like there's a lot of Western people, because they're the people that I've trained with, and as I've heard them bring this question up, like, I already don't like myself, and now you're telling me to think of myself as lower than I already am. And a lot of people do not like themselves. You don't hear, I'm not saying this, anyway, you don't hear Tibetans or Asians in general talking that way, but Americans and Westerners do seem to have a lot of self-loathing, I think. And obviously, sometimes we think of depression as anger turned inward, don't we? So that's not the point. The point is to develop humility, okay? So in particular, view yourself as lowly and cultivate respect for others. Now, the text says, whenever I am or wherever I am and whomever I'm with, may I view myself as lowest of all, and from the bottom of my heart, may I cherish others and consider them supreme. So, one simple way of thinking about this is, obviously this is an antidote to arrogance, isn't it? And our inflated sense of self-importance. And a lot of times, a lot of the Tibetan teachers say, really, we should consider others as more important than ourselves. But in a way, I think of it as almost like, normally, I'm trying to think of an example here in real life. But I'll say, yeah, for example, I don't know why this is coming to mind, but golf. Anybody play golf? Ever? I used to play a little golf when I was younger. And the instructor might say, well, look, imagine that you're swinging through the ball and you go all the way up here in other words, you're going to exaggerate what you're trying to do. And because right now you're giving up on your swing right here. And I want you to imagine that you're going all the way over here. And then maybe you'll get to where you need to be in between. So I think I take this teaching as that I shouldn't really, right now, I think of myself as more important than anybody. And my self-cherishing attitude predominates every waking moment, every action that I take, and that I would assert that we all take. And here, the teaching is to see ourselves as lower than others, which would be a huge step toward developing humility and actually beginning to see ourselves as at least equal to others. Equally, the Dalai Lama uses when he's developing, one of the steps in developing bodhicitta is the equality of self and others. And he says he imagines that there's a fence, and on one side is him, and the other side is universal living beings. And he says, so who's more important, one or countless others? And you go, well, of course, one is not as important as trillions or zillions of others, but if that one is me, then I think I am more important, right? But he says, he uses this analogy, say others are more important than one. So others are more important than me. And I'm not sure I can get to that point where others are more important than me, but beginning to open up to this possibility of seeing that this is a really distorted view. Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants to suffer. We're all the same. And others are countless, and I'm just one. So this is one of the ways that we can sort of, an antidote to our self-preoccupation is to see the value of others. Now, lastly, moving along here. Oh, we got time? 3 minutes, okay. Well, we'll do it next time then. I'll just read the verses. Watching my mind and all that I do, with force, I immediately drive out any mental afflictions as soon as they arise, for they ruin myself and others. So this is really talking about policing our mental continuum, being aware moment to moment of what's arising in our mind, and there are different ways to deal with it. Sometimes negativity just disappears, right? You just watch it, and it's impermanent, and it just like it comes in, it floats in from nowhere, from emptiness, and disappears into emptiness. Other times, it really gets us, and we have to have a conversation with ourselves and say, look, and thought training is all about that. It's really confronting our negative mind, and if we cannot find easy ways to let go of negative mind, then we have to confront it and deal with it and use some Dharma medicine, some Dharma technique. For example, if anger predominates, then if I could not meditate on love, that would be the antidote to anger, wouldn't it? The antidote to attachment is non-attachment, or clinging is non-clinging. So those are the kinds of things sometimes we need to take that on. And then the last verse is, when I see beings of bad nature overwhelmed by heavy negative misdeeds and suffering, may I care for them as if I had discovered a jeweled treasure, for they are so hard to find. And that's basically seeing the preciousness we develop compassion and dependence upon others. We see others that are suffering, and we see and that are struggling. Either they're suffering, or they're really, really unhappy, and they're going to have a lot of future suffering. And it's dependence upon those beings that we can develop compassion. And so we should see others that are having a difficult time as precious and giving us the opportunity to develop our mind and heart. Because without compassion, there's no enlightenment. There's no bodhisattvas, there's no bodhicitta. The whole thing just comes to a screeching halt. We need to develop that independence upon people that are having a hard time. So we'll review that next time. So let's do our dedication verses.
Okay, so it's page 32 in the Gold Prayer Book.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing and the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth and those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Amen.
So a quick reminder, next week, there is a Guru Puja happening here in the Kadampa, so we will not have Discovering Buddhism class. So, but you are welcome and encouraged to come and participate in Guru Puja. It's with Sog, and so it's always a very lively puja. If you've never been to one, I recommend it. So that's next Monday, April 7th, and then after that, we've got 2 more Mondays of presenting the path. Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Rainey. Good night, everyone.